Hello and welcome to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, your daily guide to decoding current affairs the smart way for UPSC. It's March 6th, 2026 and today's edition brings you two important analysis articles for your mains preparation. First, in the light of the recent US submarine strike on the Iranian warship Iris Dana, we will be looking whether we are in a phase of militarization of the Indian Ocean region. Second, we will have a look into India's rice production strategy and how India has become the world's largest rice producer and exporter, while also accounting for the sustainability challenges in the same. Finally, we will be also presenting prelims pointers which are highly crucial for the upcoming 2026 prelims examination. So let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome back to Analyst. After the Holi vacations, I hope that all of you have enjoyed Holi to the maximum levels and also having prepared for the exam in the meantime. Let us start with the Analyst with the very first article of the day, which is actually talking about the possibility of militarization of the Indian Ocean region, because recently the Iranian ship Iris Dana was struck by a US submarine, which is accounting for the first US submarine kill since the World War II. And also in the news recently, all of you may have followed that the recent crisis between US, Israel and Iran has escalated like anything in the past 4-5 days. This means that we have to actually look into the global events which happened, which we tried to summarize in the previous analyst discussions too. Here, the main topic that I will be taking up is whether we are seeing the crisis and the conflict unfolding before our own eyes in the Indian Ocean region. So we will be having a diplomatic, military and also a strategic overview into the dilemmas that New Delhi is facing in the recent times in this present conflict. We will be touching upon the various topics from GS2, where we have the topics of international relations, which will be very crucial for this mains examination. We also will be looking into GS2 topics of internal security, mainly the aspects and the concepts of maritime security. So let us actually start with actually what happened. The Iranian ship Iris Dana participated in the Indian exercise where it actually came for an international fleet review at our own Milan 2026 exercise. It was returning from Visakhapatnam via the Sri Lankan waters, and when it was around 40-50 miles away from Sri Lanka, it was struck by an US submarine, where if you see these visuals which were released by the various news outlet, these were the moments of the strike when a bunch of Iranian Navy officials who went to participate in our own military exercise, where they went to Visakhapatnam, they took selfies, they had sightseeing, they also shopped. They shopped some local traditional Indian weaves. They were sunk. And they were sunk in our immediate waters. Now it is to be noted that this attack did not take place in our exclusive economic zone. It took place near Sri Lanka's EEZ, but still it is having a very big repercussion on our own Indian affairs. So this is where we have to understand that the US came with a nuclear powered submarine and it struck the Iranian ship. Also, when we talk about the broader contours, we have to understand the Indian Ocean region does not entirely belong to India, obviously, but we have so many important areas in the region itself. For example, we have the various places of Strait of Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb and Malacca Strait, where we can comfortably tell that more than 20 to 30% of the entire international trade happens between these regions, which connect the east and the west of the entire world. So this means that there are various strategic and military dilemmas that are facing India right now, because we have to understand that Iris Dana in February 2026, it participated in Milan 2026 exercise, being India's own guest. While returning back, while it was torpedoed and sunk down by the US nuclear powered submarine in our own Indian waters, it means that firstly, we have maybe an erosion of regional hegemony. Now this term hegemony is very important for the beginners to understand. Hegemony generally means, for example, if we have India here, we have Sri Lanka, we have Bangladesh, we have Nepal, we have Bhutan, we have these neighboring countries, which actually have a lot of reliance on India, be it military, be it economic, or be it any other aspects. India has a local leadership with reference to supporting these countries and in their own various affairs. For example, if you can talk about Sri Lanka and also the various other island nations, Mauritius, Maldives, India is sometimes known as a net security provider. That means definitely if Indian economy is within the top 5 economies of the entire world, both in nominal and real terms, that means we have a lot of economic power, and using that power we can actually keep the region safe. Region safe from whom? Region safe from China, from US, from this kind of external state actors, right? Those state or those nations which are not present in the region. So it is actually the responsibility of Indian Navy and the overall Indian forces to actually keep a strong presence in the Indian Ocean region, so that no other persons can come in and stick these regions for themselves or carry on this kind of attacks. And if at all this attack has taken place right now, this extra regional presence by the US Fifth Fleet, this means that tomorrow China can also come, tomorrow any other country can also come and say that, okay, these are the various enemies which are present in your own Indian Ocean region and I am coming to kill them. This means that this is totally going against India's own regional hegemony. The next dilemma in this conflict is that various experts are telling that India's underwater domain awareness was not entirely fulfilled. For example, whenever we understand that India is such a very large country with so many amount of military resources, we have a high amount of presence of naval vessels in the Indian Ocean region. So actually experts are telling that it is very, very unlikely that India did not knew about this attack before. So based on this, there are two scenarios. Firstly, various experts are telling that, okay, let us assume that India did not know anything. India did not know that, okay, a US submarine is going to come, a nuclear submarine is going to come and destroy this Iranian ship. Now this means that most possibly we did not have the technologies sophisticated enough to detect a US ship coming in or US submarine coming in. So tomorrow if China comes in or Pakistan comes in, maybe we will not be able to respond properly, right? And that is why various experts are also criticizing India. They are criticizing us that we cannot track foreign nuclear submarines. Now, I think that this is very unlikely. The next scenario is very serious. The next scenario is telling that India was aware of this US nuclear powered submarine entering our Indian waters. A foreign country is coming in our own Indian waters. While it is fine that, okay, this is not within our exclusive economic zone. So the US Fifth Fleet came in and attacked the Iranian ship, and this did not actually happen in our waters, but still we have to understand we are such a large country, we have such large resources to detect such movements in the waters, and still we did not take any action. Maybe various experts are telling that US actually forced India to not take any action despite knowing this event which is going to happen. This means that our own strategic autonomy is totally declining. Also, we have seen the recent Donald Trump tariffs and the various issues with US we have had recently. This means that with the US we do not have our own autonomy to make our own decisions. Even as of now, when I am speaking right now, the US has allowed India 1 month of time to import Russian crude oil because of the Middle East crisis right now, right? That means India's strategic autonomy is maybe a tale of fiction. And in this entire event, we maybe have also alienated Iran, our very long friend, right? And if we are doing this, maybe Iran, maybe other global south countries and also the various Indian Ocean region nations, they will be very skeptical of India's regional hegemony right now. Also, when we move on, we understand that Indian Ocean region was popularly known as a zone of peace. No major conflict, no major events. Only time to time maybe China became very naughty and came with their own ships to spy. That was it. That was the most aggressive behavior done by a country. But this present event has totally shaken the Indian Ocean region. Countries like Sri Lanka, Maldives, and various other nations within the same, they are publicly criticizing this action and indirectly also calling India to action, that where we have faltered, that why we did not take any decisions. We have had so many major policies such as Sagar, such as Mahasagar. We have blue economy policy for the entire Indian Ocean region, which was the zone of peace. This is totally declining right now. Now, this can start a naval arms race in the entire region. Maybe China will be sending more ships, because China will be becoming very cautious right now, because USA has come and destroyed a ship of Iran. So China will be coming with more ships, right? That means that gradually this Indian Ocean region can become more militarized, can have more presence of such international non-state actors in the region. Indian Ocean region gradually can become a region where we generally used to control various events. For example, there were various events of Somali pirates, right? And that is where we also helped Iran in repelling some of the pirate actions against Iranian ships. So we helped Iran. We also helped with reference to the various events during the COVID pandemic. We supplied vaccines. We actually helped various other countries in the region with reference to their own humanitarian assistance during various disasters. Also with reference to various Chinese ships coming in, the Indian Navy sometimes also issued various advisories. So we have actually time to time tried to assert some of the regional hegemony we had. But right now, it can actually become a sea of denial. That means as of now, we have to become very strict with reference to what are the various strategic and military events which are taking place in this particular region. And at the end of the day, asymmetric escalation can also take place with reference to any kind of actions taken by Iran in the Indian Ocean region. Right? This can actually spiral to more serious events in the future. Now, when we come to the economic and energy security dilemmas in front of India, we have to understand that firstly, the conflict is taking place in the Middle East region, right? So, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, all of the countries are facing these kind of strikes by Iran, directly and indirectly, by Iran and its allies. Now, what will happen to the inward remittances by Indians? Because you have to understand that apart from US, which is the highest source of remittances, I mean the money that India sends from the international countries to India, right? These are known as the remittances. So, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, if you can actually have a separate column where you only put the Middle Eastern countries, the Middle Eastern countries combined together is the top source of remittances for India. So this conflict will see a decline in Indian remittances. This can have an impact on our GDP. This can go down. Especially this can affect some of the states which are dependent on the remittances. In the comment section, you can let me know one or two states like that. Now, we also have to understand that Iran has told that except Chinese ships, no ships will be allowed past their own Strait of Hormuz. This is again very, very concerning, because we have to understand that through the Strait of Hormuz, India is dependent on the crude oil supplies, right? Because this region in itself very rich in oil resources. So 88% of the imported crude oil passes through this region. And since Iran has blocked the Strait of Hormuz, that means India's own crude oil can become expensive. And if the imported crude oil becomes expensive, this can actually raise the domestic inflation in the near term. So RBI can be becoming very, very cautious about it, and maybe in the near future, we can see an increase in the repo rates and interest rates, right? Because this war zone is extending into the open region, where these sea lanes of communication, or mostly the major lanes where these ship vessels carry the crude oil and the various other goods that are transported through this region. So this region and these routes are becoming totally impacted. So this means that the overall economic situation is not good. There can be imported inflation in the region. And whenever we understand that the prices of the crude oil increases, this means that this can actually lead to spending more of Indian rupees, right? And this means that there will be rupee depreciation, correct? And whenever we have rupee depreciation and whenever the cost of imports increase, the current account deficit of our country will be increasing, and that will further create more depreciation of Indian rupee. This is happening right now. And if at all such things are happening, all of these things will be totally declining the foreign direct investment in the region too. Because investors would not be interested to coming into India, especially in India's energy sector. So FDI in the energy sector can go down, so threatening our own energy security. Also, since a lot of ships are stuck in this entire Strait of Hormuz region, these ship companies and the very big corporations who belong to the shipping sector, they are required to pay a very large amount of insurance. And this large amount of insurance which are due to this war which is going on right now, these are increasing the cost of doing business. These are leading to the losses and also leading to the losses of Indian importers of crude oil. And especially here, the various public sector companies in India, such as the ONGC, they are facing huge losses right now. And they are facing losses with reference to public money too, right? So this is what we have to understand, that these economic issues and these dilemmas are extremely crucial for India's energy security. Now when we come to diplomatic dilemmas, India is right now in a very tough condition, because on one side we have the US, on one side we have the Iranian situation. Firstly, we have so many agreements with the US, such as the LEMOA agreements, the logistic agreements, and so many other military agreements, where these agreements actually kind of in principle permit some of the US ships to come into India for training purposes, for various retrofitting, for fueling, refueling, for this kind of things, right? So US can tell that, okay, you are part of the Quad, you are part of this kind of logistic agreements, and that is why you cannot alienate us, right? So India is in a actually very tough condition. On the other side, we are actually a very key friend to Iran. We have contributed a lot for the Chabahar port development. And we have to also understand that the Iranian ship was actually returned right after it enjoyed Indian hospitality, right? Even the Iranian minister here told that, the frigate Dana was a guest of Indian Navy, and it carried around 130 sailors who took selfies, who shopped in and around Vishakhapatnam. Even the local residents of Vishakhapatnam are actually very sad, because the sailors visited their markets and the towns, and this has actually caused a very sad event. Now, on the other hand, as of now, we have also some news coming from the Indian Navy that Indian Navy actually mounted some rescue operations after this Iranian ship was sunk, right? And that is why a training ship and various other vessels of our own Indian Navy, they actually went to the affected region and they tried to rescue a lot of sailors, along with the Sri Lankan Navy too, right? So this means that Indian Navy was not lying just like that. Indian Navy actually took various actions. We took actions to save the sailors, but it was too late, right? Because we have to understand that such events, with reference to these two geopolitical tightropes between balancing the Western and the Iranian interest, is a very costly one. Because, for example, for India's own regional aspirations, right, we have various international corridors. For example, the INSTC, right? This actually connects Mumbai to around St. Petersburg, and the main region, if you can see here, is bridged by Iran. Because since we cannot go via Pakistan, we have chosen Iran. And that is where we have Chabahar port, we have Bandar Abbas, we have so many other assets of Iran, which we thought we would use in the future to boost our trade and connectivity with the greater Central Asian region. Now this aspiration, this kind of diplomatic effort is threatened right now. Also, if we are actually seen by Iran as maintaining this very tight balance, majorly tilting for the US support, that means Iran can gradually go into the China and Russian axis. And you already know that China and Russia right now are actually becoming very close partners. Actually, they are partnering against the US. And this is where Iran can also go into that axis. And that can actually complicate the situation way beyond imagination for India. So that is exactly why India must sort these things out. We must reclaim our own Indian Ocean region. We must try to improve the various assets that we have in this region. And that is why, India's own submarine fleet, whether we are using it for reconnaissance purposes or mainly spying purposes or for military deterrence purposes, we have to expedite our Project 75, which is actually directed towards totally modernizing our fleet and bringing in various new submarine assets. This can actually have a better presence of Indian armed forces in the region, right? Also, when we talk about the seabed-based sound surveillance system, which maybe was not totally working in this situation, we have to spend funds to improve that, upgrade the technologies in the same. Also, we have to understand that India is actually part of the Columbus Security Conclave, where, if you can see, these countries are present mainly. We are talking about safeguarding the Indian Ocean region via having a security conclave, a security meeting between these countries. So, India must urgently call a meeting of the Columbus Security Conclave right now. We must try to discuss with our partners in the region what are the overall and what are the various extended versions of such military action by the US. Next, we have to diversify our strategic petroleum reserves, because we have to understand that such conflicts can totally threaten the crude oil supplies from the Middle East. That is why, as of now, in the country, we have comfortably around 90 days of strategic petroleum. And if we can use it economically, and if we can try to increase the strategic reserves which we have in the various parts of the country, we will be much more secure, right? Most possibly, we should be having around 180 days of strategic petroleum, so that such events do not impact us to that level. Also, we must be dealing in non-dollar trade right now with various countries to actually lessen the dependence of dollars, and that is where US kind of indirectly also controls us. And with Iran, we should be having a rupee real trade, because we cannot stop giving assistance and trade purposes to the Iranian country. And at the end of the day, India must be coming with a document known as a red line policy. This red line policy should be having a detailed amount of the trade routes which happen in this region of the Indian Ocean region. This red line policy document should be shared with all the Indian Ocean region and the various partner countries, and we should be having a synergy of the various naval forces in the region, and here we should be boosting more amount of naval capabilities in the region. So this is where India can again become a credible leader in the region, so that such events do not take place again and US interests do not force us into such uncomfortable situations where we are actually intending to become Vishwaguru of the global south, and also in the near future. So this is where we come to the end of this topic, which was actually a very lengthy one, but it was actually required, because this theme of militarization of the Indian Ocean region can become very, very important for the upcoming mains exam, guys. So practice this question right now itself. We'll be moving on to the next one. So guys, in this article, we are having a look into India's rice production and export strategy. Now, on the number side, we have to understand India is the world's largest rice exporter. But domestically, due to this specific thing, we are facing a lot of environmental crises. So let us actually look into from the very basics. Firstly, when we talk about the UPSC prelims, they love asking questions on the major cropping patterns. So when we look into the conditions that we require for rice cultivation, we need hot and humid with an ideal temperature range of 25 to 35 degrees Celsius. Also, areas where we have more than 150 centimeters of rainfall annually, they are more recipient to rice production. Also, you must know that whenever we have seen paddy fields, we see that the fields are full of water, because This water prevents excessive weed growth and also ensures that the fertilizers and the various other kind of nutrients that we give to the rice, they are well received by the roots of the rice too. Also, when we talk about the growing cropping pattern in the various parts of the country, the east and the south part of India, we have three cropping patterns generally, while on the northern and the hilly regions, we generally have only one crop season of rice. Why? Because of the cold winter conditions. Now, when we talk about the main data here, we find that India is the world's largest rice exporter with an annual production of around 150.2 million tons. India is ranked globally one in rice production and also export. Now, when we talk about the states which are the highest rice producing states, we have UP, West Bengal, Punjab, Telangana and Odisha. Very important for your prelims, guys. Now, when we talk about the exports here, we export around 21.5 million tons of rice, and these are the two varieties of rice which we try to export. We have the basmati rice, which is known as a premium rice, right? And generally these are exclusively grown in the Himalayan foothills near Punjab, Haryana, Western UP generally. And majorly we try to export it to most important markets only, right? Like Iran, Saudi Arabia, US, and these are actually very high value. That means the rice farmers, they get high amount of profits if they export this. Now, on the other hand, we have the non-basmati rice, which are the kinds of varieties of rice which are local and staple, right? These are also known as Sona Masuri, broken rice, and these are generally exported to countries such as Benin, Bangladesh and various African nations which require food security. Obviously, you know guys that the basmati premium rice is also accorded the GI tag in the country. And that is why there are lots of rice farmers, basmati rice farmers, who actually profit a lot from the exports of such rice. And we have to understand here the main reasons why the Indian rice model is under stress in 2026. Firstly, understand one thing, guys. Whenever you see rice paddy fields, whenever you go to your village, right, you see that a lot of water is actually used in rice cultivation. So much so that producing 1 kilogram of rice through the entire process from the starting to the end, it requires 3000 to 5000 liters of water. 1 kg of rice, 5000 liters of water. Just imagine the situation here. Because to irrigate 1 acre, right, to a depth of around 2.5 centimeter of water if you want in that field, you would require 1 lakh liters of water in 1 acre. Also, 5 centimeter of water level is to be maintained continuously, right, apart from 2.5. So double it. This would be the level of water if you require to make your rice weed free or various amounts of other unwanted plants which grow along the rice and destroy the rice crop. If you want that not to happen, you need 2 times, that is around 2 lakh liters of water. So all of these things plus the various other water requirements actually require 5000 liters of water, and this is actually leading to groundwater crisis in the states of Haryana, Punjab and even some regions of Western UP. If you see, these are actually some of the various areas where rice is grown, mainly the basmati rice is grown, and these are the areas in red which have actually used either all their groundwater resources or they are going to lose all of the resources. That means that these regions will be becoming water deficient, water scarcity, local people will not get water, right? And that is where we have to understand that basmati rice actually requires significant less water because generally the cultivation is done during monsoon time. So monsoon naturally gives us actually a lot of water that is required for rice cultivation for basmati. Now compare it to non-basmati rice, which is generally grown during the summers, and they require a lot of water, significant amount of water, because they require almost daily irrigation. And since we are using it domestically, since we are actually trying to export it, we use a lot of water mainly in this non-basmati rice. Also, we have to understand that the states of Punjab, Haryana and the various other states, they grow a lot of rice because simply the government procures it and the government procures it for MSP. So the rice farmers are actually very safe and secure. They know that if they grow rice, most of them will be procured by the government at MSP at very safe prices. That is why we have a lot of rice which goes for MSP procurement. And this is exactly why we have more rice cultivation and also more of wheat cultivation in this entire region. Now, coupled to this, we also have pre-electricity for irrigation when it comes to farmers. So our farmers get free electricity, they use a lot of water, and this is where we again see a lot of water being wasted due to the rice cultivation. So this means that water table is falling around 0.5 to 1 meter every year due to rice cultivation, and most of the water is virtually exported because India is simply the world's largest rice exporter. Also, the second concern is climate change, because whenever we grow rice, we actually inundate the paddy field with water. So whenever we do that, this leads to a reduction in oxygen supply, and this leads to a lot of methanogens, which are some of the microbes and the various microorganisms present within the soil, to produce more methane. Now methane, as you know, is actually a greenhouse gas. This gas traps in the atmosphere, and this traps heat. This creates more global warming. And we have to understand that in India, agriculture itself contributes 18% of the total greenhouse gas emission. And here rice actually is one of the largest component within the agricultural sector. So that is where we understand groundwater pollution, groundwater degradation. We also have climate change. We also have government policies. We also have free electricity. These are so many issues that actually is leading to degradation of the soil quality, water levels in the country itself, just at the cost of rising rice exports. So this is what we have to do as of now. In the article, we have several solutions which are suggested. Firstly, India first right now move on from non-basmati rice to basmati rice, because basmati rice uses monsoon for irrigation. It uses less water. So let us actually have more varieties like basmati rice. Next, we need water efficient rice farming techniques, and we have three. Firstly, when we talk about the traditional transplantation of rice, firstly what we do, the farmers generally grow nurseries or small rice samplings in their own houses or in their own warehouses, right? So the farmers firstly have a nursery of rice, and they use a lot of water for that. Then finally, when the rice plant is actually grown a little bit, then they try to transfer it to the fields where they use water again. Instead of that, why we do not directly seed the seeds of the rice into the soil using the seed drill? So this is minimizing the level of water that is required. We can also go for alternate wetting and drying, where fields are actually allowed to dry out, and then farmers would insert a pipe which would actually help them monitor the water tables and the water levels down the soil surface. And based on that, we can do rice cultivation. And the last one is system of rice intensification. See, in traditional rice farming, generally all of the samplings are puddled together. They are actually clubbed together. Instead of that, what we can do in this SRI technique is we can actually plant single seedlings in a square grid. We can have enough spacing in between, and so that we can actually allow the various roots to grow properly. And we actually use a lot of organic compost, and that is where we can have a lot of yields and less amount of water that is required. Also, we should be going towards crop diversification right now by growing various crops which require less water, like pulses, maize, oilseeds and millets. Even India is promoting a lot of millet cultivation right now. In the comment section, can anyone let me know when the International Year of Millet was celebrated? And it was actually an Indian effort which the FAO also recognized internationally. Now, we have so many government policy measures also. For example, say to save water, various state governments should be trying to phase out the free electricity subsidy, or they should be having some limits in the time of the day. Also, we should be having better MSP procurement for pulses and oilseeds, because pulses and oilseeds and the farmers which are growing them, they complain that the procurement via the MSP is not good, and that is why we grow rice or wheat, and this is leading to pollution and the so many amount of negative impacts. So actually we have to have better government response. And we also need to sometimes, time and again, whenever we see that the domestic rice production is going down and also there is a lot of groundwater depletion, we can go for restrictions of the rice, right, to various countries. And this is where we also need to have a balance between the global food security measures too. Because we cannot restrict rice to countries such as Bangladesh, Nigeria, Benin and various other countries which are dependent on Indian non-basmati rice for their food security. Maybe we can have some curtailment of the basmati rice exports, which India also have actually done in 2022, 2023 and even in 2024. We actually have had some rice restrictions on various countries just to actually safeguard the inflation in our own country and also lead to less amount of water export to those countries. So this is where even the Indian Agricultural Research Institution is taking so many better measures. For example, they have a technique known as marker assisted selection. This means that agricultural scientists, they would actually recognize very important healthy genes of rice. So using those healthy genes, we would cultivate more healthy rice varieties. For example, we have 1121, 1509, 1501, 1401. So these are all the genes which we have incorporated within the basmati rice, right? And this is where we are trying to extract those genes from wild rice varieties which are kind of disease resistant, right? They also have less chemical requirement. So these genes can actually lead to better rice varieties and less water usage over the period of time. Also, we have so many new generation of varieties which are known as Pusa, Basmati 1847, 1885, 1886. So all these are actually varieties which are actually produced using advanced agricultural science. Now, at the end of the day, we have to go forward. Right now, going forward means we have to use more new frontier technologies, the deep technologies of the time, such as AI, machine learning. We need to actually levelize the digital agricultural mission. We have to use the agri stack to actually gather more farmer data, the crop data, the yield data, the soil data, and we can actually try to transform that. And actually we can also use the irrigation data and use AI and machine learning to optimize actually how much of the same is needed for the rice cultivation. So in this way, we can have better rice varieties in the near future. So this is where we must be having a balanced rice policy when it comes to rice export. We have to focus on the groundwater resources, the various depletion of the same, and that is why all of these concepts we can actually try to implement in this question. And in the comment section, you let me know what is the answer to this 2020 PYQ. So now we'll be moving on to the prelims pointers. So the bombing of Tehran is going on. Tehran is also bombing Israel and US forces. So in this entire process, we are seeing a new term known as iron beam. Now this is an Israeli technology which is trying to detect the various incoming drones and the missiles, and it is trying to bring down them. And it is actually an alternative to the Iron Dome of Israel, but at a much more cheaper rate. Let us actually understand how. Firstly, we have to understand right now, in 2026, the war is not fought only on the oceans, land and air. We also are using right now space, using satellites to actually have an eye on what is happening on land, air and waters. We are also using cyberspace, which is where we have the entire software, the entire coding, where we are also using AI right now to detect and direct how our satellites and how our fighter jets, how our army and the various naval forces would operate in a very huge synergy. So this is exactly what is happening right now in modern warfare. Now in modern warfare, Israel is actually using a very clever technology which is using all of these layers. This is known as ion beam. Ion beam is kind of a directed energy weapon. So it looks like this. This is a 100 kilowatt solid state laser mounted on a mobile trailer like this. Mobile trailer means this is kind of a vehicle which can be carried out to wherever you want to deploy this. So what it can do? It can actually destroy some of the missiles and some of the drones using only this laser beam. This laser beam will be destroying the circuit boards of such missiles and the drones, right? And it is actually much more cheaper than the Iron Dome of Israel. For example, per missile the Iron Dome is intercepting, it cost 50,000 US dollar, but whenever we are using this directed energy weapon known as ion beam, it cost only 2.5 to 3.5 dollar. So this is where we have to understand, this is literally burning the targets and melting the targets instantly, right? And this is developed by Israeli private company. But we have to also have a caution that ion beam has actually helped Israel, right, to detect some of the drone threats and also some of the smaller missiles, not the bigger ones. For the bigger ones, for your prelims, please know it, Israeli forces have Arrow 3 and David's Sling. These are the technologies that they are using for bigger missiles. But we have to understand that the main positives of iron beam that it is kind of cheap and it is light, so it is unlimited kind of ammunition. Also, Israeli forces can save their other missiles and the various Iron Dome, and they can use the iron beam to save those costs. Also, the negative is that since it is actually creating a lot of heat, it requires a lot of time to cool down. Also, the range is limited because you cannot use lasers to hit hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of various missiles and the drones. Also, it is contingent on the atmospheric conditions also. For example, during cloudy nights or rainy events, you cannot effectively use this. Now, US also has a similar framework. The US framework is very simple. US uses 3 layers: satellites, radar and radomes. Satellites, you already know, it can actually hover around the earth and have an eye on whatever is going on underneath. The radars, they detect various targets, and based on the target's location and the events, they trigger some of the attacks. And at the end of the day, we also have radomes. These are, if you can look like it, it's a golf-like dome, right, which is actually monitoring the entire satellite beams and the radar. This means that the radomes actually receive information which is sent by the satellites and the radar. What it does? It does into a synergy which is known as the US Space Force. The US Space Force is having coastal, space and cyber domains. They operate on these domains. And the technology on the sea that the US Navy is using is known as Helios. Helios means high energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance. It is the same version of the iron beam, right? So it is actually kind of destroying missiles and drones by actually using satellites, radars and radomes. This is the complex process in which the detection is done using satellites and the various information it transmits back to Earth, to the radars and the radomes, right? And this is exactly how you have to understand that such military techniques and military principles are very important, because in the past, in prelims in 2018, they asked regarding the terminal high altitude area defense or THAAD. In mains in 2021, they asked regarding the S-400 air defense system. So you generally need to know in detail how these systems work, right? Now, when we talk about India, do we have that? Yes, we have it. We have it as the name of Project Durga. Project Durga has a range of around 2 kilometers as of now. Initially, it will improve over a period of time. If you can see, this is the mobile trailer and this is a laser beam that we have, right? We also have various other projects of the DRDO. Right? This was also developed by the DRDO. For example, we have the Kali, the kilo ampere linear injector, and also the various systems that we have for Army and the Air Force. On the other hand, when we talk about the cyberspace and the space domain, India also has a Defense Space Agency, correct? And the Raksha Cyber Agency. This means that the cyberspace and the space itself, right, itself, when we talk about the integration of satellites, we are actually having organizations dedicated for that. Over a period of time, we need to have better organizations because of the modern warfare that is going on right now in these days. Now, that was all for this topic. We'll be moving on to the next one. So, as you know, there were various strikes by Israel on Iran. So far, we are going to right now know that these are only the first phase of strikes. The second phase is going to come, and it is going to come at Iran's underground missile sites. So this is where US has also released that Minuteman III. This is US's doomsday missile. So again, there are some defense technology terms we have to look into the technology of the same. Now, you have to understand that, this US's doomsday deterrent, which is known as Minuteman III, is a very dangerous thing because it is actually present in three ways: land base, three ways, and air base. That means it can be actually stored underground, it can be loaded onto submarines, it can be also be loaded into strategic bombers, which Trump showed off to Putin during his visit to Alaska. Right? Remember the time when these B-2 bombers went above Vladimir Putin? This was those bombers. And this is where Minuteman III is actually very versatile. Now what is this? This is actually a technology known as MIRV. MIRV is multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle. This means that, for example, if I launch it from underground silos, for example, if it is the land, I stored the Minuteman III underneath. So the Minuteman III, the moment I will be launching this vehicle, it will open the underground silo, it will go up into the space. It will go up and it will divide into, for example, 3 separate missiles, which will be hitting 3 separate targets. This means that this is actually a nuclear capable missile, and this is capable of hitting the targets independently, separately. All of those targets and the sub missiles, they can independently go to those targets. Why USA is showing off this particular thing right now? Why they are testing it as of now, yesterday? Because it is kind of seen by the experts that USA is kind of signaling Iran that this is what we have right now and we can strike Iran at any time. Also, the US is kind of deterring opportunism. That means that, for example, US-Israel is kind of engaged in Iran right now. So maybe China can come in to attack US right now. So it can be right now that this kind of technology is being demonstrated to deter those kind of opportunism. Also, it is kind of deterring Russia to take any chances on US right now in these conditions. Also, the main version which the US military is telling that we are doing it for data collection. We are actually launching it for pilot purposes. This was scheduled years in advance, and that is why we are doing it right now, but the timing is suggesting otherwise. Now, going into some technical specifications, there are 3 stages, as you can see: first, second, and third. And also, this has been manufactured by a private agency, Boeing. So in the first phase, if you can see, this is where the missile will be taking off, and simultaneously this is the place where we have these multiple targets. And when it comes to the range, it is having a 6,000 plus mile range. It can reach the speeds of Mach 23, right? So you can understand how insanely fast it is, and it can cover the entire Earth itself, right? So that means that this is a nuclear capable missile which the US can launch easily from US, and it can actually hit Iran within minutes. This is quite dangerous right now, because we have to understand that such MIRVs, which are actually nuclear capable, was discussed between Russia and US as a part of the New START Treaty. The New START Treaty actually was an agreement between the US and Russian countries to actually stop their nuclear stockpile and nuclear technology. But this New START Treaty expired in February 2026, this year, the last month. So right now the US is free to do anything with this kind of technology, because Donald Trump simply did not sign the agreement of the New START, right? So that means that as of now, whenever we talk about the US and Russia, they have their own various nuclear arsenal. Right? For example, the US has this Minuteman III, which is an kind of a missile which have very, very large range. Russia also has the same, known as RS-24 YARS. So both of the countries now maybe can do unlimited amount of nuclear, say, kind of testing and all those things, which can threaten the world peace. And why doomsday? Why this Minuteman III is known as a doomsday missile? Because once the missile is fired, it is very difficult to recall it. And within minutes, it can strike multiple targets. So this is exactly why this is so dangerous. Now let us come into India's own capabilities in this domain. Now such missiles are known as intercontinental ballistic missiles, and we have the Agni 5 for the same. The range of Agni 5 missile is around up to 8,000 kilometers. They have a speed of around 24 Mach. In 2024, mission Divyastra was the first test flight of Agni 5, which was integrated with our own indigenous technology. Right? So that is why we have to understand India is also having our own credible minimum deterrence. That means that our own Agni 5 is also nuclear capable. And we are having that not to attack other countries, but we are having it to deter various other countries to attack us, because if they attack us, we can attack also. This is what is known as credible minimum deterrence. And also we have to understand that in 2023, there was a question related to this. In the comment section, you let me know what is the answer. Now, here you can actually look into the various types of missiles in the country as of now in India. We have surface-to-surface missiles in the form of ballistic and cruise missiles. We have surface-to-air. We have air-to-air missiles and anti-tank guided missiles, amongst various other types also. Also, we must not confuse the ICBM technology with the fractional orbital bombardment system, because this is a system of China, where generally this is a Cold War technology, where once that missile is launched, it goes up into the space above the earth, outside the earth, and then it kind of fractionally orbits the earth, just like satellites orbit the earth, and then upon identifying a target on the earth itself, it dives down like this. So this is the fractional orbital bombardment system. You now let me know what is the answer based on whatever we explained right now. Now we'll be moving on to the next topic. So as of yesterday, India and Finland elevated their ties to that of strategic partnership. This means that the diplomatic relationship which started in 1949 is right now of high importance. Firstly, have a look at these Scandinavian countries. We have the Gulf of Bothnia to the west, and we have Gulf of Finland to the south. Now as of this map, if you can correctly see that Finland is not having any touch with the Barents Sea or with the Norwegian Sea. Very important for your prelims, guys. The capital of the same is at Helsinki. And now let us actually understand some of the main figures and data regarding Finland to actually understand the country better. So to know how developed the relationships we need to have with the country. Firstly, it has a population of around 5.6 million people, a very fairly small country, but it is having a parliamentary democracy like India. So we share the mutual interest here. Finland is a member of the EU and recently NATO, and also part of various Nordic frameworks. So the Nordic means it is actually part of the Scandinavian countries, various regional agreements and framework. Indirectly, India can also be a part of the same. Now, when we talk about the India-Nordic cooperation, before the Cold War, India and Finland did not have too much of a close relationship because of geographical distance. But after the Cold War, we started having more investments and trade with Finland. Most famously, you may have heard about the Nokia phones. They origin from Finland itself. Also, India is part of the India-Nordic Summit, where we have also Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Iceland and Finland in this. Right? Also, the main exports of India to Finland are pharmaceutical products, IT services and textiles. Finland exports industrial equipments, telecom equipments, paper and pulp equipments to India. Now, when it comes to technology, we have collaborated a lot on telecommunications. Firstly, Nokia itself is a very good example. We have also exchanged 5G technology, circular economy, because Finland is also very well equipped in AI, and also they have a very good startup ecosystem and a major startup event for promotion of startup known as Slush. Various Indian startups also participate in that. Now in this new direction, India and Finland have upgraded the relationship to that of a strategic partnership in digitization and sustainability. Now, these are all the diplomatic terms which they have signed. For example, they have signed pacts on to promote more amounts of mobility, that is promote more electronic vehicles, focus more on environmental cooperation, and also on the statistical side. We are talking about bilateral trade and doubling of the same by 2030. Also, for the first time, India and Finland are co-hosting the World Circular Economy Forum in India. Apart from this, we will be having a joint group on digitization, so to promote more digital services. We also will be promoting cooperation in 6G telecom. The two countries have also tried to cooperate on the startup ecosystem and promotion of them, but most importantly, our Prime Minister highlighted two major events. Firstly, a historic cooperation when the Finnish engineers contributed to the world's highest railway bridge over the Chenab River. As you can see here, you may have also heard about the project. So Finland was involved in that. Finland was also involved in establishing the world's largest bamboo to bioethanol refinery in Assam. So we are promoting circular economy here. So this means that there is a huge amount of geopolitical and economic significance. Firstly, recently the European Union Free Trade Agreement enables India to have this kind of strategic partnership with individual EU countries. This is one of them. And also we are trying to diversify in 6G technology, right? We are diversifying in clean and renewable energy. So we are actually trying to diversify our supply chains of such products. Also, we are having a very special praise from the Finland president, who praised India for strategic caution and safeguarding autonomy in such difficult times. Given the threat of US and so many issues going on, the Finland nation has actually praised India for this. Also, as of now, we are, as a country, India, are trying to have various multiple agreements, separate agreements with different nations, which is actually kind of a form of multilateralism. So we are engaging separately with their own national interest with separate countries. So this means that Finland president is also praising India that the world should learn from India how to do peaceful multilateralism, where we are doing trade, we are doing so many amount of business opportunities, where we are keeping both of the interest of the nations together. Also, we are having a need for digital leapfrogging because the 6G technologies and the AI technologies and the modern technologies that Finland will be giving will be helping Indian companies itself. Also, Finnish people are getting old, right? And that is where they actually need a lot of workforce. Maybe there will be a lot of simple visa requirements for Indians working in Finland, and going forward, their own demography will be helped using Indian workforce. Going forward, sustainability as a promotion of sustainable future, becoming net zero, and also promoting more and more circular economy, promoting more and more clean and renewable energy are aspirations of both of the country. And at the end of the day, Finland and Europe at the end will be having their presence directly and indirectly with India in the Indo-Pacific region too. So these are all the important dimensions that we needed to cover in this. We'll be now moving on to the next one. So according to a recent ADR report, BJP earned the highest among the political parties. Let us look firstly at the figures. If you see, the total declared income by the political parties amounted to be around 8,000 crore, and 85% of it went to BJP, followed by Congress, then to various other four parties, right? So this means that there is a gradual trend that we see that the largest party with reference to finances is BJP right now. And this is the data which the ADR, Association for Demographic Reforms, which is a civil society organization, this data they try to gather from the Election Commission of India, and it released it yesterday. Now, the main focus for us for prelims and mains is we have to understand what are the various contours and what are the basics of electoral funding in India. Now, when we look at the individual funding, that is if I want or you want to donate to some political parties, that is specified under Representation of People Act 1951. Section 29B actually allows political parties to accept voluntary contributions, right? Except government companies, guys. Section 29B tells that parties can actually accept various amount of contributions, but any contribution above 20,000 rupees, that must be disclosed to the Election Commission of India, right? Now, with reference to various amount of Income Tax Act, right, we have to understand that anonymous cash donations is capped at 2,000 rupees only. So, if you do not want your name to be given out to political parties or Election Commission of India publicly, so up to 2,000 rupees anonymous donations can be done. Also, if you donate to a political party, you can claim a tax deduction in your own ITR returns. That means that if you donate to a registered party, that can actually lead to some tax savings for you too, right? But you have to understand, individual donations are actually very less. That is around 25% of the total party income. Rest of the income is actually from unknown sources. Apart from this, we also have corporate funding. For corporate funding, the main act is Representation of People Act. Now, under the Companies Act 2013, right, any non-cash money that any private company would give to the political parties, that must have the approval of the company's board, right? And in 2017, right, a particular provisions regarding that a particular company cannot give more than 7.5% of their total net profit has been removed. Right now, companies can give unlimited amount of money, any money out of their profit or loss, to the political parties of their choice. Now, disclosure requirement is that, that financial statements of the companies must be disclosed officially, right? But, any particular company is not liable to disclose to which party it has given money to, right? Also, under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act of 2010, right, the foreign companies in which there is more of Indian ownership, that means if there is a foreign company here, so here 60% is actually owned by an Indian owner and 40% is owned by foreign investors, that company can actually donate to political parties. So this also raises some of the concerns that there can be foreign funds going into elections too, because if there is a majority of Indian ownership in that company, that particular company can donate. Now, coming to one more way which is gaining popularity is the electoral trust right now. Electoral trust was set up under the Electoral Trust Scheme 2013. So here there are so many private companies which pools money from you, me and everyone, whoever is willing to donate, individuals, companies, right? So they take the money from all of us and then they will be dividing that money into various other political parties. Now, how much money will go to which political party will be determined by your own choice. So you will be telling as a donator how much money that political party should be getting. And sometimes this is actually anonymous, because what happens in the electoral trust are that the trust collects the money, it pools the money and then only distributes it at the end. So, the exact link between a donor and a party is not exactly clear. And this method became more popular when the Supreme Court struck down the electoral bond scheme, because it told that it was unconstitutional. And just after the electoral bonds were struck down, electoral trust saw, around 3,800 crore going to the BJP, the highest amount, right? That means it received around 82% of the same. So there are concerns regarding these amounts of electoral funding. So that is why there have been so many experts who actually support direct support of funding of political parties by the government itself. So this means that this is kind of a monetary assistance that is given to the political party. But this is not done in India, right? In India, Indrajit Guha Committee, it recommended in 1998 that there can be state funding of election, because even the small political parties would then get funds. But Law Commission, the National Commission to Review the Working of Constitution, the second ARC, right, they kind of did not allow 100% state funding of election, because there can be, various amounts of issues with reference to use of tax money for election, right? A loss of public money due to elections. That is why still as of now, the model of donations and political contributions is working in this manner. And this is how BJP, if you can understand, has become the number one party in this kind of financial dominance. Now we'll be moving on to the last one. So according to a recent study, India and China has topped the metabolic diseases in the entire world. Let us first understand what are these. Traditionally, when we were small children, we were actually not having access to this pizza, Domino's. We were very happy using and consuming roti, rice, generally diets which were very rich in fibers. But right now what we are having? We are having more of high processed foods, sugar item, cakes. This is actually leading to a lot of composition of belly fat, right? And also loss of nutrients. And this is where we have to understand that gradually over a period of time, metabolic diseases are increasing. This means that our body is over a period of time becoming insulin resistant. This means our cells are ignoring insulin and our pancreas are overworking to produce more insulin. And this is where we have high blood sugar levels and so many other lifestyle diseases. And also, coupled with this, we have so many amount of people in India who are suffering from medium, moderate and high level obesity. Fat is being trapped between organs which are known as visceral fat. Later on, this is leading to high blood pressure, cardiovascular diseases, even life-threatening diseases such as cancer, type 2 diabetes. So this is actually reducing the actual amount of lifespan of our countrymen. This is a term which is known as disabled adjusted life years. So normally, maybe someone would have lived up to this level. But since that person is having lots of pizza, lot of burgers, lot of cakes and sugars, the lifespan is going down. So this is where this report is warning us that we are replacing China with reference to this kind of type 2 diabetes, right? We are at number 2 when it comes to high systolic blood pressure, high body mass index, BMI, also high cholesterol and various liver diseases. So this means that this is spreading throughout the country. And also, if someone has to realize that in India, we have a genetic predisposition. That means sometimes our previous family generations may have suffered from heart diseases, may have suffered from diabetes. That is a risk. Plus our own lifestyle right now, which is very lazy right now. Plus our ages are also increasing over a period of time. And with age increase, the body's metabolism, the activity, it slows down. And these 3 things, they lead to severe metabolic dysfunction. And that is where we have to understand. India is actually walking into a silent pandemic, a health pandemic going forward. So that is why we need to actually take concrete measures. Firstly, all of the various amount of goods, food goods that we buy, they must have a nutrient labeling on the front itself properly. Also, we must be reducing excess sugar, sodium and trans fat consumption. At the end of the day, this is where we have to understand we have to have more vitamins, minerals, fibers in our diet. We also need to have pedestrian friendly zone, cycling friendly zone, so that people work out more, people cycle out more. Our Indian urban areas are not designed for this. We have to also account for that. And finally, various schools and workplaces must have daily exercise protocols of minimum of 30 minutes every day. All of you are also advised, guys, please do work out. Do not always study. Please do work out. Please do go out and run for 30 minutes, jog for 30 minutes, so that you can also become mentally fit, physically fit and perform well in the exams. And in the comment section, finally, you let me know what is the answer to this 2011 PYQ. Finally, at the end of the day, I thank you all for being a very patient audience. Please do attend the quiz which is following up. Till we meet again. Thank you. All the best. Good luck.